Also controversial because as Christians, we know that we're not supposed to do it. Hi, this is Peyton with Girls Gone Right, and I have one of my really good friends with us today, Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle with Conservative Women of North Carolina and Her Heritage podcast on Instagram.
I'm going to link all of it below so you can go check her out on social media, but we have a very spicy topic today.
We do.
We've been waiting to talk about this for a hot minute.
We have.
So we learned this about each other, that we had this in common when we were doing a podcast like almost over a year ago.
Yeah,
we had a
that's true.
podcast and we touched on this a little bit and we realized we both did this and learned from it. So we're gonna discuss living with someone before marriage.
We're not saying, you have to do this or that there's a formula to this or anything like that. I think we just want to share our experience, what we think about it now, and then get your thoughts and see what you think about it.
Yeah, like there's no recipe for the perfect relationship. I think it is truly different for everything.
I think so too. I believe in that strongly.
It's also controversial because as Christians, we know that we're not supposed to do it.
That's what God talks about in the Bible. I think
Yes.
like we're told, don't corrupt the bed or defile the bed. And, he puts these boundaries in place for Christians to not do things ahead of time and kind of save those things like sex for marriage and keeping marriage sacred and kind of focusing on the right things before you get to that point, including not living together.
Yeah. And it really truly is to protect your heart. God sets these commandments and defines what a sin is to protect you, to protect your heart.
Is.
So God gives you sins, right? Like a playbook to protect your heart. And he tells you not to live with someone before marriage, and it's biblical. And for me, I think the most painful part of living with someone was it not working out and moving out, because that hurt more than the breakup itself. Like moving out of a house that we had together where I envisioned us to have a future in, and just moving out and having to deal with that, like with one another. Like we lived in a house together. I had to pack up everything that we kind of like built together, all of our memories, and putting that in a box and leaving a house where like I just thought I was going to spend forever with someone. That itself was probably the most painful thing that I've ever experienced. Yeah, like that.
It's like a divorce.
It felt like a divorce. Like we had pictures all over the house of us, and just taking all that down and having to like live through that, I think was like, that is going to make me, when I remind myself of living with someone before marriage, that's what I remind myself of, is the moving out part, because for me, that was the most painful thing, and I would never want to go through that again.
I didn't even think to reflect back on that, because it was, now that I'm thinking of it, it was the hardest part. Did you have to go through like every little thing in the house and be like, are you taking that? Are you leaving that?
Yeah, like who's going to get this piece of furniture? And when we were having those conversations, like we ended things on really good terms, and he helped me move out. He moved me into my new apartment. Like it ended on good terms.
Same for me.
Still, like looking at the furniture, we were like, okay, so who wants this coffee table that we both picked out together in the house that we were building?
Down to the magazine on the table. Like it was that nitty gritty.
Like hurtful things, and like having those conversations, and then even moving out, like, oh, do you still have this at your house? I think I forgot it. It was just really painful.
Did you feel like you were left with nothing? Because I felt that emptiness. Like what do I have to show for it at the end of the day? After 5 years of being with this person, I moved in, played wife, and now I'm here left with nothing except the dog. I got to keep the dog. But besides that, I truly felt like I had nothing to show after all was said and done. And I think that was the hardest part for me.
Yeah,
like
looking
back at that.
What do you have? Everything that you planned figuratively in your head is gone. That doesn't exist because it never happened.
I didn't get a house. I didn't get a ring. I didn't have them. There was nothing.
Yeah, there was no there was no chance even, right? Like you guys lived together. You did all of that which you would have done in marriage. You did that all before, and you didn't actually give the marriage a chance. It could have, like, if you did things the opposite way, maybe it would have worked out. But because, and that lives in me too, right? Like because we did this that way, did that taint our relationship? Because we did things backwards, is that why it didn't work out? Like we moved in together very early on in our relationship.
Same, like within months.
Yep, within the first 3 months we moved in together, and we thought it was it, and I thought I was going to get engaged, and it was prolonged, And sometimes I think maybe if we didn't move in together, maybe if we did things right, it would have worked out, but we didn't. And maybe that's why it didn't work out. I mean,
but it does, I mean, not to say like it doesn't work out for other people,
Yeah.
because it has and does. But in our case, I think there are reasons why God does put boundaries
Yes.
in place, and it does kind of help in most cases, like more than not. But do you think that, like, did your faith play a part in all of that? Like, were you still really strong in your faith in the beginning and during, or
Yeah.
is it because your faith wasn't so strong that you didn't really think about those things going into it?
I would say I was a very like lukewarm. I was a Christian growing up. I went on a missions trip after high school, and then in college I kind of lost it. I was a liberal. I believed in God, but I didn't have a good relationship with God.
Yeah.
And so when I met my now ex-boyfriend, he pushed me and I became very conservative. He changed my life in a really good way. I feel like
Politically or faith?
politically
Like,
and faith.
Oh,
I
and
remember
faith.
when I met him, he challenged my beliefs. I didn't see a lot of value in myself when I met him. I was really broken, and when I met him, he showed me that my value. He's like, you're worth so much more. You need to see that. And it challenged me in a really good way. Like, I really needed that. I look back at the time in my life when I met him, I was broken. I was like half the human that I am today. No, it's not ideal, but I don't regret that because it is who I am today. It challenged me in a lot of ways. I grew so much, but also now I think I can look back and I won't ever live with someone before marriage again. Hopefully, it's every,
It's like we shouldn't.
Yeah,
we're told, told not to.
I think whether I do or not, I think I'll always look back on the moment of just how bad it hurt. Like it made things hard in the sense that maybe I would have not stayed so long if we didn't live together. Like, because
Oh, totally. It's way
I knew-
harder to
Yeah.
separate and when you're living together.
and that made it
You
a
try
really
to make it work. You really try to make it
Yes.
work because you're splitting rent and like things are a lot easier.
to break up and take time apart. Like, we couldn't even have a break because we lived together, and to move out and take a break is just
There's no break.
So
There are no.
definitive.
You lived there with
Yeah.
the person. There's no taking breaks.
Family's gonna know if I move out. Like, it's
We're
gonna be a
making
huge
this
deal.
work.
Yeah, so I think if we didn't live together, it would have been, first of all, I probably would have ended it sooner when I realized it wasn't 100%, but I wanted to make it work so badly because we did all of this.
So this is a pattern maybe because I felt the same way is I noticed red flags. I noticed some things where we weren't aligned fundamentally with values and things like that. But I was a little blind. I would say I was a little blind to those things
Yeah.
because I'm living with this person and because I have this plan in my head with this person and I'm currently in the plan, living in the plan because we're living together and that was the first step. We're in that step now, and then there's supposed to be another step after that, right? It's supposed to naturally progress.
Yeah.
And so I'm less likely to see the red flags or at least to believe them and act upon them. Versus if I didn't live with this person, then maybe I would be, more intent with how I'm
Proceeding
handling
with that.
these issues and challenges and like things that we're not aligning on. Like
Yeah.
these are big things we weren't aligning on. Like, spiritually, like what we believe in and, how important family is to us and things like that. Like those things I ignored for years and it affected my relationships with my family and friends and things like that. And I kind of like let it slide by because I was living with this person. I was so devoted and committed. Like when you're living with someone, it's like you feel like you're so dedicated to this relationship. Like I'm in it to win it. And I think we're both kind of like that, where we're like ride or die, like very loyal. Like we're committed. We're devoted people.
Yeah.
And it makes it way harder to like separate and think objectively, right? Outside of your feelings and your heart. And I think that's why God always says, don't lean on your own understanding, and to protect your heart because everything flows out of it, but also, our heart deceives us a lot. And I think my heart deceived me for years. And I literally put God outside of my relationship. I heard him talking throughout the years and I said, no, not for this one. I want this man.
You wanted what you wanted.
I wanted what I
versus
wanted.
What God had planned for you.
I would not listen to God.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I started doing my own Bible studies in that relationship that God started revealing and convicting me more and more. And to the point where I was like, okay, like God's trying to tell me he has bigger plans for me. He's got someone else.
And I think as women, we are just innately feminine and kind, and we have compassion in our hearts, which makes it really
Oh my
tricky to
gosh.
live with someone.
This is a good one. Yeah.
Because when you see these red flags, you kind of
extend the grace and
You-
try to be understanding.
you be
and
understanding, you justify it because you want to show
justify.
compassion.
Yes.
And you want to, like, we are meant to serve. You know, we have servitude in a relationship, especially women. And
Yes.
when like, for me, when I see, especially my partner hurting, I try to, like, compensate and help them, and I justify a little bit, and I try to serve them even more to just make them better. Like, I naturally just want to love people so hard.
Me too.
And I think that's not a
that
bad
about you,
thing,
though.
but when you put
Yeah.
yourself in that situation, it is, because you look past those things. And as women, I think we shouldn't have to be hard on the outside because of things, right? Like, we should protect that. We should protect our feminine
Femininity.
qualities. We
Yes.
should be kind and soft and sweet
Yes.
and not be on edge all the time and be super aware. Like, it is good to be aware, but as women, we don't really thrive with that. It kind of hardens
You don't
us almost.
thrive in that environment.
It hardens you a little bit, and I think when you put yourself in a situation like that, you're kind of being taken advantage of, because your feminine qualities are to, like, be soft and kind
Nurturing.
and nurturing. You want to take care of a man.
But when
So-
someone's taking advantage of that
Yeah.
and not really showing you the commitment you
Yeah.
deserve to be able to even afford those qualities
Yeah.
from you.
as a woman, it's hard to be like, no, I'm walking away from this. It's because you don't want to be hard. You don't want to be like, what do you call it? Like, you don't want to just act like you're cutting it off and that you're being hard and that you have to have this hard exterior and be cold. It's hard to do that. I find it hard to be cold.
Especially if you love the person. You love the person.
I naturally don't want to be cold. I naturally, if someone's hurting, or especially in a breakup or a relationship, I find it really, if I invested a lot of time and I really care about that person, I'm always nurturing and trying to be
Same.
there for them. And it makes it very hard to leave, because, like, by nature, I
Yes.
don't want to be cold and I don't want to hurt anyone. And I think it kind of puts you in a position as, like, you have to step out and do something that's not natural to you and be cold and be hard on someone.
I also think the whole, like, God, protecting you and, like, telling you not to listen to your heart.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was kind of lost in my identity in this relationship. Not to share, like, too much, but I think not having my identity in God, for those of you who are Christians will, like, maybe agree with this, but, my identity didn't lie in God throughout that relationship. It lied in this man that I was with. So my whole world revolved around, like, this relationship and this person, and it's like my identity was with this person. It was never alone with Michelle. It was never in Jesus. And it wasn't until I started strengthening my faith that God was speaking to me, and it was like a tug of war. I had Jesus on one end of the rope, and I had my boyfriend at the time on the other side, and he was pulling me in this direction, and Jesus was pulling. I literally felt like I was being pulled in two different directions. And one day I just asked my boyfriend to let go, and I said, you have to let me go. And I would have never been able to get to that point if I didn't trust in God and, like, be open and willing to listen to him and tell me, you're worth rubies, Michelle. Your identity lies in me, and I have so much more in store for you. Let me show you. I can't show you if you're still in this relationship.
Wow.
And in my goodbye letter to my ex-boyfriend, I told him all of that. Like, half of the goodbye letter was about, my faith and how it strengthened over that relationship, and how I needed him to let me go because Jesus wanted to show me this whole life that he's promising me. I'm reading the Bible, I'm getting to know God, and
I'm like,
and he's like promising me all this stuff, and I'm like, you're promising me a lot, God. And it was over and over again. He kept telling me, I can't show you though if you don't let go.
yeah.
And as soon as I let go, my entire life just flipped upside down. I quit my job, of my highest paying job I've ever had. I quit the same week I let go of my boyfriend and told him, we need to end this relationship. And he was okay, and he accepted it, and he let me go. And now looking back, I'm like,
Wow.
this was a great decision, but I'm having a harder time than you about accepting my mistake in the past of living with my boyfriend and being so devoted and committed to something that I'm not sure was ever really going to go anywhere.
Yeah. But I think it's benefited you too, in the sense that you know yourself better and you know what you want. Had you not experienced all of that, you wouldn't be so strong as to what you want right now.
That right
showed
there,
you.
what she just said just now.
You know what you don't want because of that. You
Right.
saw it all, and I think that experience gives you better vision right now.
And I don't I would never be here sitting with you and
Yes.
talking to whoever's listening to this video. And maybe this could actually be useful to someone listening, and I hope it does. And I would never know who I was. Like, I know who I am to my core so well, it's scary.
Because of
Sometimes
experience.
I frighten myself.
Failures and successes help you identify who you are.
Because of my failures and my
Yes.
mistakes. I know what I like and what I don't like, what
Yep.
works and what
you
will
have
not
to
work.
actually, if you do nothing, you'll never know who you are. But you have to actually try things to know if you're going to succeed or fail, and then you correct from that.
And it's a lot of pain and suffering, and a lot of pain and suffering that I've been through to know who I am.
And you know yourself better because of that. And I think it's better than not trying anything at all. If you wait in life to just never do anything, you're stoic and you never try things, you're not going to know yourself, because you have to have experiences to learn things from and take that and identify with it and build character.
God literally says that suffering builds character. He says that.
Yeah.
And I had to study suffering last summer. I spent like a whole summer just trying to understand why this world suffers so much, why there is so much suffering. And, you know, it really all is for the glory of God. There's a reason why there is suffering. It's a little piece of a big picture and story for everyone's lives. There's reasons why we suffer, but suffering is actually very good. Not that it's good to move in with your boyfriend and suffer and go through all that pain. I don't think God wants you to just suffer, and like he actually wants to protect us, and that's why he says, you know, don't try not to, you know, don't have sex before marriage, and like he tries to explain what that's for and what marriage is all about. And I think the more you study that and the closer you get to God, the more you'll feel convicted, and the less kind of things you'll do that are not so based on our feelings and like, but I love him and I just want to move in with him and I don't care. I'm going to do it my way. That starts going away a little bit. And then you start pausing before you do things and start praying more and waiting.
Waiting for God's answer. And people make mistakes. God knows that we're human. We sin. We make mistakes, but I think at the end of the day, you have grace, you have salvation, you have redemption. And so because you did all of this, it's not that God isn't going to not accept you. God still loves you, and God loves you even more because now you know his heart more. You learned from that, right? Like now you know why God was doing that, and you trust him even more because he knew the whole time. And I think everyone sins, right? Everyone has sinned before, but at the end of the day, as long as you know that you sinned, that's all God wants. He wants you to know that you sinned and learn from it, and at the end of the day, give yourself grace because he gave you grace. And you learn from that, and it's an experience, and I have more trust in God because of that, because like when you were giving your testimony of when it ended, like you knew that there was going to be something better for you, I like got chills because when we broke up, I basically just like had a come to Jesus moment of God saying, do you trust me?
Right.
And, like that's all I heard. Like I literally just heard like
it's a test.
Praying to God one day because I felt like there was just the relationship we were just it was not going anywhere. At the moment we were at a standstill of like what do we do next, because I don't know if this is like we are either going to get engaged or we need to end things, and I didn't know what to do. So I don't know what my choice should be right now, because it's really hard once you live with someone. So I was just praying to God, and he said, do you trust me? And I have never really heard God speak to me before until that moment. And like I was scared because this man is my whole life. He's my 5-year plan. We live together. We have a house together. We have a dog together. We have all of these things. We have plans together. Like we were talking about kids and how to ring, like all of these things. And I was scared. I was 24. This is what I thought my life was. And God just said, do you trust me? And I'm like, yes. And he's like, you need to do this.
Then step aside,
then
sister.
Let me do this. And I just remember I came back home and I'm like, I need to move out. Like this needs to, and I've never, like we've never like actually like had that conversation before of like moving out and breaking up. Like that was new. But when I did it, I was like, I need to move out. And like I did it. Like that was just it. Like I just was like, I have to, like if I really trust God, I'm going to trust him on this one, and whatever's meant to be is meant to be. And when I moved out, it was really hard, but also at the same time, like my ex accepted it and was supportive of it, and it made it easier versus having a toxic ending and a fight. But I moved out, and everything started happening in life for me. I moved out, I got my dream job, I moved to Nashville, I got to do my podcast, like my whole
It was like
life,
boom, boom, boom. That's
my
how it
whole life
happens.
changed.
It literally happens like that. God
everything
shows
happened.
you.
God showed me, and I just remember my first like 2 weeks of living in an apartment by myself, I was so sad, like heartbroken, because like this is my life and I don't know what's next. I don't have any plans for next month. All my friends are going on trips. All of that's gone now. I don't have anything. So I just remember feeling so lonely and empty. Then God just put these things in my life, and it was like when he said, and now I always just recall the memory of him saying, do you trust me? And because I said yes, and I've been trusting him ever since, God has given me so much because I said yes, because I trusted him in that moment of, instead of doing what I wanted to do, I did what he wanted to do. Like that.
Can we talk about that? I think we need to stop and talk about that a little bit, because that's a consistent thing in your journey as a Christian, is you have these moments as a Christian where he tests your faith, and he literally, you can hear the Holy Spirit. You can hear him say, do you trust me? And he waits for your answer until you're ready. And then as soon as you say yes and you let go, that's when the magic happens. And it's happening for me right now, even outside of this relationship. It's literally, I think it's a little crazy to be a Christian, because it's insane if you think about it. It's like this relationship with the creator of the universe, and you don't see him, but it's like wind. You can feel it. You just don't see it, but you know it's
guidance.
there.
He's offering you guidance to give you a better life. Like if you really want a blueprint to have a great life, all you have to do is listen. Instead of listening to yourself, you listen to someone that created the universe. Like imagine
and
the
he
person.
tells you, he shows you in signs, with people, with messages, with Bible. He literally shows you exactly how
Someone
you'll
has
take it.
the perfect plan for you, right? Like let's say, hypothetical situation, there's some guy that is going, he's like, I have the perfect life for you, and it's all planned out. You're gonna love this plan. It's $30,000. Do you trust me to build this? Like, but you're gonna have the best life ever. Anything, this is gonna be better than anything that you could envision for yourself. Like whatever life that you have right now, whatever you're doing right now, I have something for you in this box, and you have no idea what it is, and it's $30,000. Will you invest in this? Because this is going to be better than anything that you could build yourself. Better, whatever dream you have now, tenfold. You know, you don't know what's in this box.
That's literally what he tells you.
You don't know what's in this box, but it is going to be so much better than you could ever think for yourself. And you have to be like, are you going to, be like, well, I don't really know what's in that box.
But people say no to that.
Yeah, I'm kind of
every day they say
I'm
no
kind
to
of comfortable with what I'm doing now. It's not that great. I have some things that I don't really like. I have some qualms, but it's pretty good. And I don't really love my job, and I'm in a okay relationship, but it's pretty good because I don't know what's in that box, and there might be some bad things.
Yeah, they don't believe it.
Yeah, there might be, and it also might be challenging. Like, what about if that job is going to be harder? Like, what about if that's like not really what I want to do, and I don't really want to go.
Or does that man even exist? Does the perfect man for me
I don't
want to
have to serve God and have to volunteer my time and do that.
Does
like,
it come with strings attached?
Yeah, what's in that box? I don't really know, but what I'm doing right now is comfortable, and like I like my plan, so I'm kind of just gonna stick with this. And they're like, okay, you know what? Whatever's in this box is gonna be so good though. Like you're really missing out, and then they reveal it, and it's like the best thing that you could have ever imagined. You would have never have dreamed of these things.
But that was us in our relationship for years. We didn't want to open that box.
No, because
we said,
I'm like,
this is good.
I like what I have right now, and I don't want to bet on your plan. I want to sit in mine.
Yes.
Because it's good enough. And whatever's out there is scary because it's the unknown. Like, I know what's in here, but what's out there is unknown, so I'm not going to do that. Because it could be good, it could be bad, it could be amazing, but it's unknown.
But you know what that is? That's a
doubt.
That's a doubt in your faith that he's not going to come through for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think when you place your faith in God instead of your plan, like life changes because your plan is
never going to be good enough. It's not going to be big enough.
What God has in store for you, no one thinks to pray that big. It's so big that you can't even imagine what's in that box.
Nope.
Like, I got my dream job after that relationship. I was not even working in that industry also. Like, I was working in insurance. I was literally doing underwriting for commercial properties. This was not my career by any means, and it was like my dream job, but I would have never thought to ask God for that because it didn't seem possible. But when I chose his plan, it was like, whoa, I just prayed for like a higher paying job, not like my dream career job. Like, whoa, that's like a huge blessing.
That's a nice surprise.
You are blessing me with something that I would have never prayed for. So when you plan on your life, yeah, sure, it might be comfortable and you're going to live in sin and it's going to be all right. And it might not even work out the way that you have it planned, but God will have something so much greater for you. But yeah, you might have to suffer. You might have to get out of your comfortability. You might have to cope through your sins and your
You might
decisions.
have to confront things about yourself
yeah,
that you don't really
you have-
want to see.
Yeah, you know what?
and
You
deal
might have to
with.
stop hookup culture. You might have to stop living in sin.
I
But
stopped
it's-
drinking.
Yeah.
Like right out of he did too, out of our relationship. We stopped,
Wow.
I don't know, we didn't even drink that much. But we're like, I don't know, there was something, your whole life transforms. Things about you that you might not even like. And then all of a sudden he just fixes it for you.
Yeah.
He's the ultimate healer. Like we learned today at church, that he's the healer, not a healer. And
This
he
is so
can,
true.
he designed your life already. It's been
Yes.
done. People with very strong faith, I've learned, they don't think that God can come through. They think God has already come through.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to meet him, to show you.
Trust. Like, all you have to do is
Yeah.
trust. Like, I'm just going
But
to
that's
trust
hard.
you.
It sounds
hard.
easy, but it's actually very difficult.
Yeah, but you're going to trust a man that you don't know to live with him, but you're not going to trust God? Like, you're going to trust some guy that is going to break your heart when
You
God
say it
will
like
never
that,
break your
yeah.
heart. You're going to give your heart to a man that is, he doesn't even love you enough to marry you. And you're going to give him your heart, but you won't give God your heart. God is not going to break your heart. And this man he may, and you're living with him in sin. But there is a God who is not going to break your heart, and you won't even trust that. Like,
And
which is,
if it's a man from, the man you're supposed to be with, I think it's going to naturally progress and it's going to feel
he won't
like,
want you to live in sin. He will want to do things the right way, and he's going to make that known. And he's going to want to protect your heart too. Like, if a man really loves you, he's not going to want to put you in a situation where you may or may not get hurt.
No, I think if you're listening to his voice, because he's available to speak to you and tell you what to do. Like as far as guidance and direction,
Yes.
he's available
24/7
24/7.
Yeah,
Holy
customer
Spirit,
support.
Yes.
Yes.
But you have to tap into that and you have to depend on it.
Yes. God doesn't come to you like, okay, Apple doesn't contact you every day like, hey, are you having any problems with your iPhone lately? They don't do that. It's like,
good
no,
analogy.
there's a problem with my iPhone and I'm messaging Apple trying to get my password reset. Apple doesn't call you saying, hey, I saw that you were locked out of your phone a few times. Do you need help? No, you have to do that yourself. You have to initiate the customer service.
It's a
You have to
relationship. You have to work on it.
Yeah, if there's a problem, you need to initiate that with God. God's not just going to call you and be like, hey, you're living with, this is all happening. He's going to give you signs, but it's really ultimately up to you how you handle that. Like, customer service is a one-way street, unfortunately. Like, Verizon's not going to call you when you have problems. It's interesting to see it that way. Like, he is always available, but you need to have that open because God's always listening, right? But you're not.
You know, I always say prayer is how you speak to him, but reading the Bible and working on that relationship
Yeah.
is how he speaks to
Yeah.
you. You have to be listening and open.
Yeah. Yeah, you do have to be listening.
You can't just be praying because a lot of Christians are like, I pray, I go to church.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not enough.
So what was your biggest takeaway from living with a man before marriage?
Well, I'm done doing it my way. Even if I meet someone that I'm completely infatuated with, I'm so done. Like, I don't want to pick them. Like, I have to wait for God to tell me and give me a sign or, show me that this is where he wants me to be. I'm done picking my job, my finances, my friends, the next man, like the man that I marry. I'm done setting the path for myself. I don't even plan my life. I don't know what I'm doing next month.
So what would you do differently if you could redo it over?
Okay, so I think that I've accepted that I don't have to move in right away with someone if I, get in a relationship with them and we fall in love. I think I want to wait longer. Even if it means waiting until engagement, maybe I'm okay with that. I don't know. I haven't gotten to that point with the next person yet, but I think I would definitely wait to move in till at least engagement. I don't know about wedding, but but I'm okay with not living with that person in a relationship while I get to know them and see who they really are before I say yes to that person. I think I'm okay with that.
That's very reasonable.
And I've accepted that. And I don't know what you guys think or if you would do that or...
Yeah. And it's not to say that it doesn't work out when you do that. That's not true. We always know that
we've seen people
causation,
work out.
correlation is not the same at all. And people get divorced for many reasons. And sometimes it does work out when this all happens. But
for us, we've been through
and
our
it's not about it not
experiences.
working out or working out. I think more so it's about protecting our hearts. That's what
I'm more
That's what
concerned
the
about.
principle is for me. Like, I'm not concerned if it doesn't work out, because also I do a lot of things in life that don't work out every day. Like, everything's a chance, everything's a risk. I am okay with things not working out. Like, I understand that you're gonna get in a relationship and they're not all going to work out. You're gonna take a job and it's not always going to work out. You're gonna move to a city and it's not going to work out all the time. And I'm okay with things not being perfect, and I've accepted that more so now in my life than ever. So it's not about if it's going to work out or not. I think it's more so of I'm protecting my heart, because I don't want it. I got a little cold after that. It made me a little cold towards dating. It made me like offstandish. And it made me a little hardened on the outside, and I've been working on that a lot, my vulnerability and things like that, because I let someone in so deeply, not just in the relationship, but we lived together. He knew me like the back of his hand. Like, experiencing that, like, that made me a little hard, and I don't want to ever put myself in that situation where it changes me because of someone else's actions or what happened.
Yeah.
So I think more so at the end of the day, it's not about, you know, it is because I know God wants to protect my heart, and it is because that's what he wants me to do. So a lot of it is that, but I will say also I do want to protect my heart, because I know he wants that ultimately too. God wants to protect your heart. And I think at the end of the day, it just experiencing something so painful like that hurt. Like, I can't even describe that feeling. It was like a feeling of failure, losing hope of like your whole future crumbling, even though in the moment, that's what it felt like. I know that now that I had something so much better planned for me, but experiencing that at 24, of like already being heartbroken. Now on top of that, I'm like heartbroken because I lost my best friend, my roommate, my boyfriend.
It is your best friend, your roommate,
and had I not lived with him, I would have separated so much of that. And also, it's like all of that ended, and now on top of that, I have to move out. I have to like live in a new place. It was like so much going on.
Logistically, it's difficult. And on top of that, emotionally, you are much more attached. Much more. You're not just attached to the person, but all the things in that house that now you have to agree on.
Did you know, like, so imagine, you know, this is just a fun fact. When you hug someone for 20 seconds, girls, you know, in women, we have oxytocin released in touch. Men release vasopressin. They do have oxytocin, but for women, we have a lot more of it, and it's released during different interactions. But when you hug someone for 20 seconds, that's all it takes. You become attached to them in some form. You know them better. You smile a little sweeter. It's like women do that. You give off that thing in your head. When you hug a male for more than 20 seconds, you feel some type of way.
And you're doing that every day. You live with them.
And so imagine living with someone. It's the bond, like the bond that you create with them. It's not just the pair bonding of having sex before marriage. Like, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But the bond, like, women don't bond over sex like men. Like, men release vasopressin during sex. Women bond during hugging, breastfeeding, childbirth, sex too, but we bond during just touching, physical touch. Men don't bond like that. Men bond during sex. Vasopressin is released during sex, but women bond just from touching.
Oh, great.
So like women are more susceptible to that pair bonding and attachment just because you're touching and interacting. Even if you're not having sex with someone, even if you are being very close to them and cuddling with them all the time, you become naturally attached to that person, because when oxytocin is released, you feel like you give someone a sense of trust, like you trust them. And like, that's when women feel safe, right? Like, okay, because I'm hugging you and I feel safe, I feel protected, now I feel like I trust you.
So would you say it gives you more clarity when you don't live with that person in a relationship to really look at it objectively?
You have your love goggles on, but it's also because as women, that's just science. You can't really argue with that. Like, oxytocin is being released during that. Like, imagine sleeping next to someone, cuddling with them all the time. And now I think I'm a little more careful of who I even spend a lot of time with, like when I'm going on dates with, because I do know that that's how women's brains work. Like, if I'm touching you all the time, even if I don't like love you with my heart, my brain feels attached to you. Like, I feel like I can trust you, and that's where love and security forms for women.
Wow.
So I think you need to be careful about who, not just who you're having sex with, but who you're touching all the time.
I agree. Like, well, good thing I don't like people touching me.
Sex and touch women is release oxytocin. So it's not even just sex. It's like truly, you could be like, maybe you're not having sex, but you are living with them. You are touching them all the time. You're near them all the time. Like, even being in that space of like where you have that like physical connection, that's where it all forms for women. And men, it's a little different.
What about roles? If we talk about roles, like what about playing wife before being wife? You know, people talk about that aspect a lot. Like, what did you think about that? Was it worth it?
I don't think, I mean, so naturally, like I love to serve. Like I'm a little more submissive in relationships in the sense that I want to just make a man happy. Like I want to cook your meals and I want to do your laundry. I want to make life easy for you. Like I naturally want to do that, and I'm not going to not do that because I'm not married. Like it's just something that I naturally want to do. Like we naturally want to be a caretaker, and we're motherly. Like you get all of that. And that's like kind of taken advantage of, right? Like when you live with a man,
yes, and you're
I
not
can't
married.
not do that. I can't not
You're
do
not
your
gonna
laundry.
not do the laundry.
I can't not just do my role because I'm like, well, there's no ring on my finger, so I'm not doing it. Like it's
that
hard
would
to
be
not do
weird,
that,
yeah.
because I want to, and I can't help that I want to do that. That's just
I'm the
in
same
my
way.
genes.
Yeah.
But I do think like you get all of that, and like yeah, to some extent, like I think you should know someone else. Like how good are you at fulfilling your role? We want to know that a man can protect and provide. They want to know that we can care and cook and clean and take care of the home. But there are different ways to learn that about each other, right? Like you don't
why
have
are you
to,
playing that role like together living in the same house before before it's actually meant to be performed?
And I know people use the analogy of like you want to test drive a car before you buy it.
But why compare a person to a car? You're not that cheap.
Yeah, and I will say I didn't test drive my car before I bought it. I'm a typical girl. I bought it online and I picked it up. Yeah, I didn't test drive it. I'm like, no, you want to test drive it? I'm like, no, because I know what I want. And sure, maybe some people care about the way it rides a car, but like that's a car. And I will say with a person, there are different ways of getting to know someone without living with them. Like if I go to your house, I know how you live. Like if I know if you're clean, if you spend enough time with someone and you actually are aware and looking for these things, you will see it. But if you're not looking for those things, you're probably not going to see it. So be very aware, have those conversations. Also, we talked about today the premarital counseling and premarital Bible studies. You learn so much about each other because it challenges you to have talks about, okay, where do you spend your money? Because like that's what you notice too when you live with someone, right? Like we have a lot of Amazon packages today. Where are you spending your money? Like your
routine, like are you lazy or are you productive?
You can have those conversations with someone
you don't have
without
to
living
with
with
them.
them.
That.
Yes, you could have but it's like you have to put yourself and have those conversations. You have to be uncomfortable to do that, or else you're never going to see it.
I think it makes you mature. It makes you come.
So have those conversations without living with them. You don't need to live with someone to know about all of that. You can easily have those conversations.
Yeah, so I think that's like a cop-out when people say, oh, I want to try it to buy it. Are you talking about sex or other things? Because you don't really need to try anything else. Like,
no.
He cooks.
And if you know my heart, if you know me and love me and you know my heart, you're going to know what my intentions are and how I'm going to fulfill my role.
I can still bake you something and bring it over.
Yes.
I don't have to.
I'm going to cook you dinner still. It's not like, oh, you don't get this until we're married. Like, I'm going to cook dinner for you, and there are going to be ways that you're going to know that I'm nurturing, because that's, as in a relationship, you do get to see that in one another. I know if a man is masculine. I know in the ways that he treats me when we're dating and how you treat each other, if you respect each other, if you trust each other. There are so many ways where you can bond and see all of that without taking all of these additional steps. Like this is just.
So what do you say when someone says, how do I know if I like living with that person unless I live with them first?
Okay.
But if I may get married and then I move in,
so like, what are the things
like living with them?
I would say have a conversation of like, what are your requirements of like, this is what's important to me.
Deal breakers.
Yeah. What are my deal breakers when I am, and not necessarily deal breakers. Like these are the things that I like my apartment or house to look like. These are things that I do. Like I'm really tidy. I do the dishes a lot. I like to cook. I don't like to do laundry. Like that's not my favorite thing. I won't lie. Like sometimes it's overpiling and like maybe I don't like to do that, or like maybe I don't like to clean the bathroom. Like have a conversation and like talk about how you live with that person. And you know what? You're going to have to be honest. And like, that's what conversations are about. Like, hey, you know what? I'm actually like, I like to shop a lot. I have a shopping problem in my closet. There's so many clothes in there. Like, be honest with your partner.
Or I'm really anal. Like, I need everything really clean, like supremely.
And like, you know, sometimes like everyone has their quirks, but you have to be honest. And I think if you love your partner enough, you show the honesty, they'll give it back to you. Like, hey, you know what? I don't like shoes in the house and it really bothers me. So like, you're just going to have to get used to that. Like, learn about each other. Ask the hard questions. Be raw and honest. Like, you're going to, like, to get honesty out of them, you need to be honest too. So I think it's about having that conversation just while you're dating. Like, be honest. Like, people like to hide things.
And if you're ready to actually live with someone, you're going to be like, you know what? I don't
You
like
need to
that
know
about
all of this
you.
because it might not work out if I don't tell you.
If you share something with me and I don't like that you do that, and then if I'm ready to move in eventually with you, then I'll just find compromise and find a solution where you guys can meet together. Like, you're going to live together.
Yeah. Like, if there is something like, hey, you know what? Guys don't like, my ex did not like to do his laundry. And that was a huge problem every week of like, hey, you need to actually do your laundry. But also, if we didn't live together, like, I would have had these conversations before. Like, I would make that a point. Like, you need to be able to at least do your laundry, like, maintain it, or find a system that works for it before moving in together. Like, had I would have known that,
like, hire someone to do it if it's that big of a problem.
We should have had these conversations before moving in together. We didn't even have these conversations of how we lived. We just did it, and it caused a lot of fights. Like, had we had this conversation before that he hated laundry, I would have been like, let's get a laundry service. Like, let's pay the $30 a week to save our relationship, because it would have caused a lot less fights. So, like, had we had that all before we moved in, it would have helped us.
There could have been a solution.
There could have been a solution.
But we were young. I think we were really young. We didn't really know to have these conversations.
And I didn't know what kind of questions. I've never lived with a man, but now I'm like, okay, so you know what? I know. And so, like, I did learn a lot from it, but I would say ask all of those things. Like, go through your daily routine, go through how you like your house. Like, everyone has little quirks of where they keep things, how they run and organize their house. Write all of that down of, like, how you like things organized and how you tick, and, like, what your morning routine is and what your weekly thing is. Like, what do you like to do? And, like, maybe you clean your house, like, a good deep clean once a month, or, like, just all the small things, groceries. Write all of that down. Like, write a game plan of how you run your house, and then talk to someone, your partner, about that before you even move in together.
Yeah, it's all possible. It's easy.
You can find solutions before there's even a problem.
Right. It makes it more complicated.
Yeah, don't even, if you have that fight, like, yeah, now you know that there's a problem, but maybe there's no way to find a solution at that point, because now you live with them. But if you do it before and you're like, okay, you know what? We disagree here. Can we find a solution? And if you can find a solution, great.
And if they don't want to
budge, you can have that
budge,
solution before.
and if they don't want to like budge or compromise,
then maybe you shouldn't move in with them.
Is this really the person you want to live with then?
Yeah. So that's like something that I think I would do differently, because I just never would have thought to do that. And
that's
I think
good advice.
And I think now, like, I will, before I ever do that again, and I do want to wait until I'm engaged before I move in with someone ever again. I'm engaged once, and I mean, to me, like, I think it's just being able to, like, make sure that we're on the same page. Because ultimately, I don't think that me and the person that I lived with were on the same page. Like, I wanted the commitment. In my head, I wanted all of that. And I think he was telling me that he did, but his head and his heart were not in agreement. Like, something was blocking that, and we weren't on the same page.
Same for us, yeah. I mean, the truth comes out eventually, and it wasn't meant to be, clearly, for both of us. But I think we can learn from our experiences, and this is our perspective. Like, we want to do things a little bit differently. Yeah. I mean, God willing, like, it all kind of works out how we plan. But But yeah, let us know what you think. And if I know this sounds a little crazy and like unpopular, but yeah, let us know what you think about that. Would you wait to move in with your person?
Yeah. What did you guys do? I know a lot of people, a lot of the subscribers are married and have experience. So did you live with someone before marriage? Did it work out? Did it not work out? What are some tips that you would do before moving in with someone? It is helpful to hear all of this.
Yeah, I want to hear what other people
Everyone has a different experience, and this is just ours.
Yeah.
We're not saying that it is the like golden
the perfect,
rule.
Yeah, this is the way. I mean, God does say, like, hey,
there is God's way, but ours is just an experience that we wanted to share, and we definitely learned from it, and it brought us here.
We're still deepening our faith, and we're still learning. Like, you know, we're not doing everything perfect, but we're trying like to work on things to help us have less pain and suffering, and hopefully lots of love in the future.
Protecting our hearts. But it brought us together. We're friends, and we met because of it, so it all works out. God has a plan.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much, everyone. Make sure to go follow Michelle. Again, I will link it below in the description. And thank you guys for watching Girls Gone Right.